Hello? If we were to make a list of people who have influenced the world the most, we all know that Sir Isaac Newton would be at the top of that list. Everything we see every day works according to the 3 laws introduced by Newton. Simply put, Mr. Newton is the scientist who gave us an idea of how the whole world works. So today, in this video, we are not going to talk about Newton's laws or the things that everyone knows about him. If you watch this video until the end, you will learn many surprising things that no one has ever heard about this great scientist who was a revolutionary in the 17th century. So, I invite you to stay, with your familiar affection, until the last second of this special video with your beloved Life channel. Newton discovered the basic concepts of calculus, a complex mathematical concept, when he was in his mid-20s. The son of an illiterate farmer, Newton had never seen his father, because he had died 3 months before little Isaac Newton was born on Christmas Day 1642 in the village of Woolsthorpe in Lincolnshire, England. At birth, Newton was much smaller than most children. People said that his life was saved by luck. When Newton was 3 years old, his mother remarried a wealthy clergyman and moved to a nearby village. Unfortunately, his mother's new husband did not want his new wife and a child from his previous marriage to come with him. So little Newton had to stay with his grandparents. This abandonment caused him great stress and fear. Newton later made a list of the things he had said and done as a child, and in it he said, once he thought of burning down the house where his mother and her husband lived. Newton, who was a very curious child from an early age, preferred mechanical things to playing with his friends. So, when he was a little boy of 9 years old, it is said that he had invented a sun disk. At the age of 12, Newton entered a secondary school in the area. His name can still be seen on a windowsill at Think's school. After Newton's stepfather died, his mother tried to remove him from school and make him a farmer, as he had always feared. But the school principal, who had already understood Newton, would not allow it. That is why Newton got the opportunity to join Cambridge University in 1661. Although he first studied the theories of ancient Greek philosophers, Newton had some questions about some of the theories. He had made a note in Latin in his notebook like this: Plato and Aristotle are my friends, but my best friend is truth. After that, he devoted his entire time to finding and explaining this hidden truth to people. Although Newton's university life was ordinary without such amazing discoveries and events, it is said that the education he received at that time was a great help in his later great achievements. In 1665, shortly after Newton received his first degree, the Black Death began to spread throughout Europe. This caused a terrible situation that killed 1 in every 4 people in London. Due to this epidemic, Newton had to leave London and return to his village home to work. So, just like his life, some of the greatest discoveries in human history took place during this period. Newton discovered through research that white light can be separated into 7 colors by passing it through a prism. At the time, the accepted view was that color, as Aristotle had said, was a combination of white and black light. To prove his new theory, Newton used mirrors instead of lenses to create a reflecting telescope that provided better vision. It's amazing to hear about some of the things Newton did for scientific verification. He once stuck a sewing needle in his eyeglass lens in an experiment to see if changing the shape of the eye would change color perception. Newton's family had an apple tree in front of their house. According to rumors, Newton was inspired to think about gravity when an apple fell on his head while he was under that tree. But there is no evidence to confirm this story. But whatever it was, his wonderful idea made a huge difference in the way we thought about the universe throughout human history. According to Newton, the force of gravity affects the entire universe. Newton, who proposed that the moon and the Earth move in the same orbit around us due to the gravitational force of the Earth, also proposed how the planets in our solar system move around the sun. So, at that time, mathematics had not yet reached a level of development that could explain the motion of objects. Newton introduced a mathematical concept of his own for that purpose. That is calculus. Even today, integrals and differentials in mathematics are related to it. But there are different opinions about this. According to some reports, calculus was invented by a German mathematician, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. That was according to a research report he published in 1684. However, according to others, Newton had been working with calculus for more than 20 years before that. The problem is that he never published them publicly. When Leibniz petitioned the Royal Society of London about this, Newton, who was then its president, is said to have pressured Leibniz to give him the right to invent calculus. However, many historians now say that this honor should go to both of them. With the end of the plague in 1667, Newton returned to university and began his work. It is a well-known and true fact that he was a person who was obsessed with work, sometimes forgetting to eat and drink. 2 years later, in his 20s, he was appointed to one of the most prestigious positions in his field. That position, the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge University, has been held only by the most distinguished people in world history. A world-famous scientist who later held this position is Stephen Hawking. But Newton was only 27 years old when he was appointed to this position. Newton is known as the youngest person to have been appointed to such a position throughout history. It is reported that Newton, who always showed different behaviors from ordinary people, even gave lectures to empty lecture halls. But he was most interested in research. In 1687, Newton published his greatest book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. It is called one of the greatest works in the history of world studies. Although Newton was one of the greatest scientists the world has ever seen, he did not show great distrust of religion like other scientists. In fact, Newton added more words to theology. According to Newton, the Bible is a book that gave codes to create the natural world. Newton believed that by studying such scriptures, he could predict the future. According to Newton, the end of the world would come in the year 2060. The end may last a long time, but I see no reason why it should end soon, he even said. Newton predicted a period of world destruction through wars and disasters, followed by the second coming of Christ, and the beginning of a new divine age. A little-known secret about Newton is that he was trying to find alchemy, or simply a way to turn metals into gold. He secretly researched it for about 25 years. Alchemists believe that he was conducting research to produce something like the Philosopher's Stone in the Harry Potter series, and that the stone could make people immortal. Later, when Newton died, tests showed that it contained high levels of toxic chemicals, including mercury. It is said that Newton spent most of his life in laboratories. Around 1693, Newton, who suffered from mental illness due to these reasons, gradually began to distance himself from the real world. In letters he wrote to several of his former friends at the time, he accused them of conspiring against him. At that time, he was suffering from insomnia and depression. However, Newton was made head of the Royal Mint in 1696. By this time, Britain's currency was in trouble. People were stealing coins by breaking them into pieces and making counterfeit coins. Newton, who used his scientific knowledge to correct this situation, was able to solve this problem to a large extent. It is also a story that many people do not know that Newton had taken steps to give severe punishments, and sometimes the death penalty, to those who were caught making such mistakes in money matters. In 1705, Queen Anne of England knighted Isaac Newton. From then on, this great scientist, known as Sir Isaac Newton, passed away in his sleep on March 20th, 1727. His body was buried in Westminster Abbey. The tomb of this incomparable man who left an immortal name in world history is inscribed in Latin with the words, "Here lies the incorruptible body of Isaac Newton." In a metaphorical sense, it means that his name will never die. His name will always move forward with the new world. Alexander Cope, a famous English poet, wrote about Newton as follows: "Nature and nature's laws lay hid in the night. God said, 'Let Newton be.' All was light.